Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Today is the 200th episode of Be With Me. And rather than pause and admire ourselves for the 200th episode, we are in a task, a journey to figure out why the people in John chapter 7 were so confused that they allowed Jesus to teach in the temple, because the temple is an important place. And we're going to follow this up a little bit and ask, why did God choose the place of the temple? So we have to go all the way back to the sacrifice of Isaac in Genesis chapter 22. Basically, the whole chapter tells the story of this testing of Abraham. And the point is, the reason that there's a temple in Jerusalem is because God chose that place. Let's listen to the story from Genesis chapter 22. I'll stop a couple of times. Verse 1. After these things, God tested Abraham. Potentially sacrificing your son is obviously a hard thing. And said to Abraham, Abraham, and he said, Here am I. And he said, Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love. So this foreshadows the sacrifice of the father allowing his son to be sacrificed for sin of all time, and that he's a loved son, which only makes this harder and worser. So verse 2, he said, Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I shall tell you. I will show you. I will identify where I want you to do this activity of potentially sacrificing. I call this the non-sacrifice of Isaac in my mind. And if you go to that spot today, we know exactly where that spot is. And if you go to Jerusalem, to Israel, it's in Israel, and then you have to go to Jerusalem, and then you have to go to a place called the Temple Mount, and then on the Temple Mount is the Dome of the Rock. And where the Dome of the Rock is, which is an Islamic temple, it recognizes this exact place. The reason the Dome of the Rock is there is because the temple was there originally and was destroyed in 70 AD. But this is the place, and that Mount Moriah is now the Temple Mount, and that's where this happened. So if you want to know why there's a Jerusalem and why there's a city of David, it's because God chose this place. Let me read that again. God identifies the place where he wants Isaac to be sacrificed or not sacrificed. Let's go to the land of Moriah, offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So the Lord identifies this place. So Abraham arose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, took two of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he cut wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. So God identifying it there. Verse 4, on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. So somehow the Lord specifically identifies the place where he wants this to take place. And then Abraham, this is a critical verse here. Then Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship, and then come again to you. Abraham says to his two assistants, we are coming back. Not just I am coming back, we are coming back. And so this is from the book of Hebrews, where in chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews, there's the Hall of Fame of Faith. And this is what it says about Abraham in the Hall of Fame of Faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it is said, Through Isaac your offspring shall be named. He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead. So this is the moment when that happens, where Abraham says, we are coming back. I may sacrifice Isaac if the Lord asks me to, but we are coming back because I also believe in the power of resurrection. So the place of the temple is the place of not only first faith, the first faith of Mary Magdala and the centurion and here Abram, but it's the place of first resurrection faith. And I think that's why this place is especially honored. Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. We're coming back. Verse 6. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. So here it parallels what happens to Jesus, where he carries his own wood for the sacrifice. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. Behold the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering? And the great line, verse 8, Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went, both of them together. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there, laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And then Abraham reached out his hand. So this is his moment of decision that he'll do what the Lord asks. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. And this place where this happened, where God provides the lamb, where there's an offering for sin, God expands it for being just within this family, and it becomes for all nations. We find a willing father here in Abraham. We find a willing father in the Lord. And again, the Lord provides an appropriate sacrifice. Here, a ram, and later Jesus, which will happen essentially in the same place. A place where we find a father not withholding his son to bless all nations through Isaac, Abraham and Isaac. That's the covenant and the promise that happens there. And later through the Son of God. So all nations are being blessed. So my point here is that the Lord loves the place of the temple before the temple was destroyed in AD 70, before Jesus walked and recognized that place and was preaching in the temple, as we found in 33 AD, before the temple was built in 950 BC by Solomon, before David was here in about 1000 BC. And we have to go all the way back to about 2100 BC when this event happens. The Lord chooses the place. That's why the temple is there, because God wanted to be there.